Another year is behind us, and with it, so many games played and enjoyed. Same as last year, I got together some fellow VTubers for all of us to go over which game we played in 2024 that was our favorite. Check a look. For me, hands down, my most enjoyed game I played in 2024 was The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. I'm already an avid fan of top-down Zelda games, and this game is just brimming with fun and smart design. There are times I couldn't put it down. Zelda's the main character in this one, as she fights to save Link and Hyrule from a dark new power. Her Tri-Staff allows her to summon creatures or objects that you've imprinted, which makes for dozens of answers to any kind of puzzles you can come across. Whether it's making a staircase out of beds, using a wild monster to clear sand pits, or summoning a monster to fight for you, like a Pokemon. You can mash your head in many different ways to get many different solutions. It's so much fun. Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is a must-play for Zelda fans and top-down adventure games as a whole.
Hello everyone, my name is Professor Fang. I am a Demon Hellwolf professor who likes to stream Sonic games and Souls games on Twitch.tv. I would like to thank Zarataro for inviting me to be a part of this clip compilation today and to share my favorite game of 2024, which is currently on screen here. It is Shadow Generations. If you are a Sonic fan like I am, you may have already played this game. If you haven't yet, I highly recommend it. It is a great celebration of not just Sonic as a series, but specifically our boy Shadow the Hedgehog here. This level in particular is the DLC level that they made to coincide with the release of Sonic the Hedgehog 3, the movie, where Shadow, at least in this level, he gets isekai'd into the real world, or the world of the movie. And what I really, really like about this game is just how it perfects the boost formula so well, creates levels that are so dynamic and fun to play through, and just a great time even to speed run. Once I beat this game and platinumed it, I thought, this is the next game I'm going to try to speed run. And I have absolutely no regrets doing that. It is just such a great time to learn the tech, to learn the levels, and if you want to get into speedrunning Sonic games, this is a really good one to start with because it's not as long as Sonic Generations. Shadow Generations, on your first speedrun attempt, will probably take you under 3 hours, and then from there it's just optimization. And I've got it down to about an hour and a half just after a couple tries. So if this is something that if that's something you want to try, I think this is a really accessible game to do that. Otherwise, it's just so cool. Like, all of Shadow's animations and his movements and the story itself is absolutely fantastic, especially if you're really interested in Sonic lore and are a big fan of Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, which was Shadow's first game. Ian Flynn, who wrote this game, just has so many great Easter eggs that tie things back to the original game, and it's just so... he adds so much character and personality to Shadow, to Gerald Robotnik, to Maria. And if that is something that interests you, I cannot recommend not just playing this game, but 100%ing the game so that you can read through Gerald's diary that's in the game and just learn all about the history of, like, the Bio Lizard and everything that went on behind the scenes of the Arc and the Eclipse canon. It's so fascinating. It's so tragic from a Sonic lore perspective. But I think that's what makes the franchise and this game and Shadow so special and unique as a character. So with the end of this level, I just want to thank Zarataro again for inviting me to be a part of this clip compilation. And again, I can't recommend Shadow Generations enough.
Okay, so my favorite game of 2024 is actually Bloodborne. Believe it or not, it was a viewer-recommended game. It's a really, really great Soulsborne game. And in Bloodborne, we are a regular person with a disease and come for the cure-all blood treatment, and during that time, we are contracted to become hunters by the messengers. One of my favorite things is definitely the player progression, and it's great to see how you die from the most basic enemies to taking down the most difficult of bosses, except for these two pieces of garbage. It is very challenging. And you must learn boss patterns, their timing, attacks, and you have to be just the right amount of persistence to take them down. And if you heard my controller snap, that was because of Lawrence. Oh, and let's not forget the music. The music complements this game to an extent unknown. The flow of the music helps you focus and lock in on whatever you're doing, from the boss fights or just exploration. My favorite definitely has to be Lady Maria of the Astral Clock Tower. It's just the perfect mix of epic, dramatic, and somber, and most of the tracks in Bloodborne will kind of have that somber mood, but it's really, really just chef's kiss. Oh, now let me get to the best part. The doll. Oh my god. She is so pretty. She is breathtaking. She is a queen. She is the rock that helped me to defeat the gods themselves just to impress her. I literally would worship the ground she steps on, but she doesn't move more than 10 feet. When I was on my last strand of sanity, she was there in my darkest hour. She is our beloved and nothing will stop that. And she may look like a little someone in the DLC.
He's tasked me with picking out my top game of 2024, which is a pretty big task because I've played a ton of fantastic games in 2024, but for me, the answer is actually quite obvious and quite easy for me to select. My top game of 2024 has to be Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, the newest addition to the Dragon Ball fighting game library, and in my opinion, probably the best one. It's not a game without flaws, but what it does right, it really just gets it down amazing. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is a love letter and spiritual successor to the Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi series, which also, fun fact if you didn't know, was called Dragon Ball Z Sparking in Japan. The last time we saw a game like this was back in 2007 when Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3 was released. Say that game 15 times fast. For me, this game means much more to me than just a cool arena fighter. To me, it's just my history of what got me into Dragon Ball. When I was a really young lad, I had Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3 for the Wii, which my parents purchased for $14.99 Canadian. Ugh. I had always really liked Dragon Ball before I got this game, but I really didn't know much about it. Mainly all of my information I got from Dragon Ball was from TV reruns. I had watched most of the Saiyan saga on TV, some of the Cell saga, and bits of the Buu saga, but most of the story was just reruns on TV at the time, because when I was watching Dragon Ball had already passed me by, you know, it was already over and done with, so I was basically just stuck with watching re-aired episodes that were rarely in order. So when Budokai Tenkaichi 3, when I got that game, that was how I learned about most of the characters. Something about Dragon Ball games that they've always done really well is character interaction. Before the fight, the two opposing characters will have specific or generic dialogue towards the other character. This is how I learned most of the connections between characters. Bardock is Goku's dad? What? Wait, Krillin bags Android 18? Wait, you're telling me that Raditz is Goku's brother? Okay, I kind of knew that one already, but you get my point. Through the little bits of dialogue before the matches, I learned so many things that I would have never learned just by watching the show. This was what made me connected to a lot of characters. And honestly, a lot of the interactions were what made characters my favorite characters. And in Sparking Zero, this game has that in spades. Not just for the old characters, but the new ones as well, having some really fun and interesting interactions you'd never expect. Like how Future Trunks just immediately assumes anyone with Goku's hair is Goku Black.
Goku Black? I swear I'll... Huh? You're not Black, and you're not Goku either.
It's a small, almost unnecessary addition to a game, but for me, it's just absolutely the world. I light up whenever I pick random characters and they have some sort of cool interaction. The final feature I want to touch on, I was saving what I think is the best for last. Alternative timelines and fun speculation is the foundation of the Dragon Ball community. Simply typing Dragon Ball into the YouTube search engine will net you a plethora of what if and who's stronger speculation videos, which is why I think the feature of custom battles is just such a smart decision by the devs. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero has a custom episode maker that allows players to create their own battles using interchangeable cutscenes and thousands of lines of dialogue to craft your own story, raid bosses, or even just like a funny battle. It is such a perfect addition to this game, and it opens up the creativity for the Dragon Ball community to share whatever kind of stories they want to make through these battles and sending them and sharing them online. And that's why I think that Dragon Ball Sparking Zero has to be my favorite game of 2024. I'd like to thank Zarataro again for giving me this opportunity to talk to you guys and share my feelings, and I hope you guys have a fantastic 2025. Thank you.
Welcome to Tasakata Hotel, an escape game mystery novel that I discovered in 2024 and one that I came to love. Currently, there is a mobile game that you can play for free. You do not have to pay anything, but the story does function by ticket system, which refreshes every day, so you get 5 tickets per day. And in this game, you play as a young girl named Tsukahara Neko. She discovers a hotel which lies in the boundary between life and death, but she cannot leave, not until she figures out who she is and why she came there in the first place. And as all mystery novels go, you have a wide, colorful cast of characters, each of them unique and lovable, even if one of them is a downright bastard, but I will not mention who at the moment. And there you have it. Whether you play the game or watch the anime, I hope you guys can also discover Tasakata Hotel and come to love it like I do. It deserves so much recognition in communities outside of Japan. So what are you waiting for, detectives of the world? Go play Tasakata Hotel today!
I'd like to apologize in advance. I am currently sick, so I will sound a little stuffy. Time to pick that game of the year. You know, there's a lot of options. There's those series-based games, which there's Devil May Cry, Bayonetta, Dragon Age, Dead Space, Mass Effect, and all of them are pretty good. But there's also got to be some love for those standalone games. Hi-Fi Rush, I loves my musical beats, of course. Stray Gods, great storytelling and music. Valheim, which is basically Viking Minecraft. And there's Stray, which you play as an orange tabby cat that's in a world where there's no humans. Which honestly, I love the game. Not because of the cat, definitely not because of the cat, but you know, it's probably because of the cat. But even with all that, there is only one game I have in mind. One game that pops up on the top of my list when I think Game of the Year. So let me present to you in this metal game, you play as a character named Unknown. Do not ask me why she's called that. Apparently demons are not very smart. She has come into the Hells, where this place is located, to get one thing back: her voice. See, there's this figure by the name of Red Judge who did very much like the Unknown, causing problems in the Hells, and decided to take her voice as punishment. Which the Red Judge in this game is the devil, with a capital D. Because of this, the Red Judge has sealed away the Unknown to the bottom level of hell, to never see the light of day and never to get her voice. Until one day, her very, very friendly friend had decided to save her and break her out of hell. Well, not exactly getting her out of hell, but mostly freeing her from her prison and help her achieve her goal to get her voice back. And her friend is a skull by the name of Paz. Once the two friends are reunited once more, they must go through all 8 layers of hell to get to the Red Judge to regain the one thing she needs to get out of the Hells. Now, I'm not going to spoil any more of the game. I recommend people who are really into rhythm-based games, especially metal music, to definitely try it out, because they are also making this into a VR, so if you have an Oculus, you can purchase it and play it through it that way too. Each level have their own music as well. The bands that are in here are actually quite decent metal bands. There's Dark Tranquil, Soilwork, Lamb of God, Ginger, Trivium, and System of the Down. Yeah, you heard me right. They got Serge Tankian on the damn soundtrack of this game. And I absolutely love it. There is also an endless mode of the game called Leviathan mode, which you go to the very bottom of the level and you have to go all the way through to make it to the very top. You don't have your basic essentials, you don't get your double dash, you don't get your weapons, you don't get specific abilities that you have, but you gain orbs that you can unlock and gain more of your health, your abilities, some firearms, as well as some cosmetics that will allow you to look cool and get cool abilities in the process. If you love rhythm-based games and Doom-esque levels, this game is definitely for you. You do have to focus while you're battling, because you don't want to randomly shoot something and then you automatically die by a giant man with a hook for a hand. The plot is a little bit also of a hit or miss, but honestly, the real charm is the music itself, the weapons itself, and the gameplay itself. I definitely recommend people to play it if you're into fast-paced metal game and Doom-esque levels, or if you want to just see how it's going on, because they do have it on demo and you can try it out when you want to. So that's my game of the year of 2024. I definitely recommend it to everybody who definitely wants to play some rhythm-based game and loves metal music and is also into Doom. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye.
"2024, in my opinion, was one of the best years for games. There were so many options to pick from. Adventure, fantasy, Souls-like, and my personal favorite, horror. Being a horror lover, I played and experienced a lot of this genre. There were tons of contenders in 2024, but after careful consideration, I think the game that deserves the spotlight is Still Wakes the Deep. Still Wakes the Deep is a psychological horror game that dives deep into storytelling. The graphics are beautiful. The gory detail is so perfectly disgusting. It's simply amazing. The story takes place in 1975 on a Scottish oil rig in the middle of the ocean, where everything seems to be going to plan. Yes, there's personal drama. Yes, there's coworker drama, but nothing too out of the ordinary. That is, until the drill hits something. Something out of this world. Your reality starts to become twisted. You hear things that aren't there. You can't trust your own eyes. You can't trust people. I can't say or describe too much because I don't want to spoil it, but this game is full of action, it's full of scares, it's full of mystery, and even a little heartbreak. And the ending is something that you don't see very much in horror games. This is a game that you don't want to miss.
My name is Mecha Deathclaw, and my game of 2024 is Helldivers 2. To me, it's definitely a special kind of game, one that definitely stood out this year for all of the best reasons. It's got some of my favorite properties, media properties, as influences. Games like Halo and Warhammer 40k and movies like Starship Troopers all have a very clear influence on this game. And the game itself has so many different play styles based on the faction you're fighting. You have the Terminids, who are bugs. They will come at you in swarms, and they really just outnumber the playing group, the Helldivers that are playing in the missions. You have the automatons, robots, who act more kind of like almost standard infantry. There's so many different types of robots, from the standard foot soldiers to the robots who have jump packs to robots who have machine guns. There's big robots, small robots. There's walkers. There's big AT-AT style walkers from Star Wars that make the giant big robots, the Devastators. You have gunships, and all of these different enemies really go a long way to making the automatons feel more like a standard sort of combat scenario. And the newest faction, the Illuminate, they are sort of the best of both worlds, in my opinion. You have the Illuminate Voteless, who are sort of like the swarms, like think almost like zombies, and you have the jump pack Illuminate. You have Illuminate guards who have these like stun batons who will just run up to you and hit you with them. And all of this goes to make any experience you play, along with the planet you're playing on having different features and different hazards, the maps themselves being procedurally generated. All of this makes every experience playing Helldivers 2 a different kind of experience, and it makes it feel unique every time you drop into a new game. It's a game that I think the developers, to my knowledge, they haven't made many big games. They've obviously made Helldivers 1, but I don't think they've made anything that was this popular. And the way they support this game and the way they interact with the community is really, in my opinion, fantastic. I haven't really seen another developer have this sort of relationship, embrace the lore this much, and it really shows in the popularity of this game and how dedicated the fan base is. And even more on top of that, they're always adding new content. It's a live service game in the best possible way. All of the things they add in their quote-unquote battle passes, you have them to open anytime. They don't go away. They don't vault content. It's a fantastic experience. I really think more people should try Helldivers 2, and it is absolutely my pick for Game of the Year for 2024. I want everybody to have happy holidays, and I'm going to go have a nice cup of Liberty.
Earth Defense Force 4.1 Shadow the New Despair is a weird game. For starters, the name is honestly hot nonsense that doesn't make much sense, even if you know why it's named that. The 4.1 comes from the game being a remake of EDF 2025, which is technically a sequel to EDF 2017, but that game's just a remake to the original Simple 2000 series Monster Attack on PS2. Point is, the math works out to the game being a remake of the fourth game in the series, but with 0.1 more improvements. And that much is accurate. The game is just as much of a janky, unpolished, and unserious arcadey mess as the first game in the series, but a little more mess added in. The gameplay loop has practically never changed from Monster Attack. You and a variable number of expendable EDF soldiers are deployed to deal with a horde of B-movie monsters. The main cast of enemies includes giant insects, giant robots, giant insectoid robots, and the occasional Godzilla lookalike. Individually, even the Godzillas aren't that hard to deal with alone, which is why the smallest wave of enemies are around 25 or so, when the maps don't have drop ships or bug holes that continuously spawn more. On the player side, you have 4 classes with unique gimmicks. Air Raiders can call in vehicles and support strikes but have awkward personal weapons. Wing Divers are high-mobility jetpack troopers armed with high-damage lasers that fly around the battlefield. Fencers are tanks on legs that can hold 4 weapons at once that hit like a freight train, and due to a dash-canceling bug, move like one. And finally, we have my favorite, the Ranger. Their entire gimmick is they don't have a gimmick. They play like a regular shooter, and their weapons are familiar, with assault rifles, rocket launchers, and sniper rifles rounding out their arsenal. Despite being comparatively boring to the other 3 and a bit harder to make the entire screen explode, their weapons' ease of use and power make them very fun to play. So, why call this game my favorite game of 2024? Because all this stupidity works. The game's dead simple. Either the player blasts every enemy on the field into bits, or die trying. And that's pretty much it. Outside the first 10 levels or so, missions only end when every enemy is dead. And usually by that point, the player's the only EDF soldier left standing, and half the buildings in the city have been blown up. By the player, more often than not. But besides the gameplay, part of why it's my favorite game in 2024 was streaming it. Last year I did an endurance stream that ended after 16 hours and a full playthrough as Air Raider. Am I good at the class? No, it is my least favorite class because while it is very powerful, it has a high skill ceiling, and if you don't know what you're doing, it's slow and awkward to play with how their vehicles and weapons handle. Their vehicles are so specific that if you mismatch one to the mission, you're better off on foot. Not that being on foot helps much, because Air Raider's only gun-type weapon is a manually detonated sticky bomb launcher. Granted, their bombing runs, orbital lasers, and other call-ins can be very effective if they're used right, but the cooldowns and targeting makes that as high an order as mastering their vehicles. So for 16 hours, I was fumbling around learning how to play a class I regard as my personal worst, grabbing vehicles based off half-remembered ideas of how they probably operated, and wishing for something that fired in a straight line without being affected by gravity. Because that's the other thing about Air Raider. All their weapons fire in an arc, even the vehicle weapons. But that's a weird thing. It wasn't fun despite all that. It was fun because of it. I had a blast streaming the game. There's hours of footage of me jumping in a vehicle only to be flung by a giant robot, getting stepped on by a friendly robot, or backing into a horde of spiders, and that's really part of the charm of the game. Every class plays so differently and has different considerations that once you get past trying to play it like a standard shooter and start embracing how dumb this game can and will get, it's a wonderful experience. The bad voice acting, incomprehensible plot, and subpar graphics ends up feeding into the game's intent. That this isn't a highly polished AAA game gunning to wring every ounce of performance from your machine and win awards for its moving story and revolutionary gameplay. This is a game meant to feel like it was a cheap thing you fished out from a bargain bin for $20 and paid 30 more than you should have. Looks like it was made on a potato by a madman. Because at the end of the day, that is literally what this series has always been.
Hi everyone, my name is Sooj. I'm a martial Vtuber, and I dabble in geeking about Sonic or playing multiplayer horror games with my friends. 2024 saw an influx of horror games, and I think it's due to the fact that Lethal Company was a huge success. People love horror games with friends. I have always loved horror games, and it only becomes more fun for me when it's with friends. And one game that came out last year, very recently in fact, was a game called Nuclear Nightmare. It is so atmospheric. It is truly terrifying. You go on an expedition with you and up to 8 friends. You're hired to go to Antarctica and check out a base and collect 4 evidence so that you can evac, while also being chased and hunted by giant alien creatures. The game is always dark. The wind always loud. You cannot see what's in your face because when you go outside, there's a blizzard. It is everything I hate and love about horror games. I am deeply afraid of the dark, but this game does it in such a cool way, and I've always wanted a horror game that was inspired by the thing. And I'm hoping here that having you guys see this, maybe you'll check it out, because I really want this game to succeed. I have high hopes for this game. The developer already has a roadmap of maps he'd love to do. He just made a video the other day, and he's talking about how he's hired more people to really focus on development of this game. Honestly, I hope you guys check it out. Anyway, thanks for hearing my ramblings. Bye-bye!
If you know me, then it's really easy to guess what my game of the year would be. And that's Shadow Generations, which was included as a part of Sonic X Shadow Generations. The reason I love this game is that the level design is so well done, probably the best we've ever seen from the Sonic series. So many branching paths, so many abilities to use, and it just feels so good. And also, it's just really great to celebrate Shadow the Hedgehog, a character who, despite his popularity, hasn't always been given the love or attention he needs for deep narratives ever since Sonic 06. The presentation is phenomenal, and the voice acting is very good, and it's great to see characters like Black Doom make a return. But if I'm being completely honest, the narrative is a bit of a retread. It isn't really doing grand things like Sonic Frontiers, but it's still solid, and the game is just a blast to go through. It's on the shorter end. It's not exactly going to be the deepest game, but the core gameplay is so fantastic that I think it stands on its own. For me personally, as a Sonic fan, it's just great to see these iterations grow on each other, and I hope that Sonic Frontiers 2 or whatever comes next can take the best of Shadow Generations and really put it into a game that has the narrative and the gameplay to make it something truly special. But don't sleep on this one. This is a great game. And it comes with Sonic Generations 2, so not too bad, right?
Now, I certainly played a lot of games in 2024, but my favorite one I played didn't actually come out that year. A year earlier, we got a game called Lies of P, and I was looking forward to its release, but it just kind of came out at an inconvenient time. You know how that goes. But eventually this year, I got around to playing it, and I was instantly hooked. This game takes a lot of inspiration from Dark Souls and Bloodborne, which are games I've always heard of, but I've never actually played myself. But after playing this one, I can definitely see the appeal. This game is so interesting in its lore, its world, its action, its challenges, and the whole thing is inspired by Pinocchio. Like the little story of a wooden kid who can't lie or his nose grows. You're not a wooden kid in this game, you're actually more of a robot if anything. But there are so many unique changes with the lore of this world. You're set in this town that has been completely ravaged by a frenzy of murderous robot puppets, something called the petrification disease, and a bunch of other mysteries that are just begging to be unraveled. And just at any time I was reading the story of this game, I was invested. It doesn't give you a lot to, like, you know, in terms of cutscenes or, you know, exposition. It takes a lot of inspiration from Dark Souls, which are games I've always heard are more explore the world at your own pace. You want to learn the secret origin and tragic backstory of this boss? Well, look into it yourself. But I kind of like that. Some people don't even care about stories at all in games. I personally do. But if you're just here for action, you got that too. This game's challenge is so good. Out the gate, it does not really pull its punches. You can definitely see that it's gonna be a trial to get through. But it never felt like too hard. The entire time I was playing, even when I died, which I guess was often, I never felt cheap, you know? Okay, a few things felt cheap. This game really likes its sucker punches. You know, it'll put an enemy around a corner, and you're walking around the corner, and oh no, you got hit. But that just makes it all the more satisfying on your next playthrough when you see it coming and dodge. Love it. Learning everything this game has to throw at you, and how to adapt and keep moving and throw punches back was never not satisfying. And this game has so many unique ways to go about it. This game's weapon system is so unique. Almost every weapon in the game is split into two parts. A blade and a handle. And you can mix and match and combine any of them. Some combinations are crazy good. Others are kind of total garbage, and like, there's no reason to use it. But you have the freedom to use it if you want, and that's fun. Man, but some of them are just so satisfying. One of my favorite handles has this, like, rocket to it that lets you propel yourself forward. And oh man, it's so satisfying. You can put any blade on that one, and it's a fun time. Your stats are always pretty simple. I never felt like it was too difficult to understand. Again, as someone who's never played Dark Souls, I would sometimes see stat pages in those games and be like, oh man, what's even going on here? And I'm not a stranger at RPGs, I just don't have patience. But the game has so many amazing bosses in it, which are always like the biggest draw in games like these, right? Another reason I never really got into the Dark Souls type games is because I don't really like games where the combat's kind of slower, you know? A bit more weightful to it. I mean, just last year I talked about my favorite game being Hi-Fi Rush. That game's a lot more, you know, energetic, fast-paced, crazy. That's kind of more my style. But with this game, it definitely just pulled me in with its simplicity. How complex that simplicity can be, if that makes any sense. And also, I was most intrigued about this game for hearing that its entire premise was based on the adventures of Pinocchio. Because, like, how do you make a whole world based around that? Sounds weird, but they really made it work. I mean, honestly, this whole story was crazy, and I loved seeing its inspiration from the storybooks. I never read the, like, original books of Pinocchio, you know? I grew up with the Disney movie, like a lot of people. But it was interesting to see a boss, and I'm like, what is this thing even supposed to be? And then I would look it up and find out, oh, that's actually a really interesting deep cut. I'm not going to spoil it, but this game ends on a very interesting note, implying a sequel that I really want to see what they do next. This game also has a DLC that's set to come out sometime this year. We haven't heard any updates on that, but, you know, I'm eager for more of this game. It's so good. I'm honestly on my 7th playthrough. Like, if that's not an endorsement for this game, I don't know what else is. I just have been playing it over and over. Not even for any reason. I've gotten every achievement, but it's just fun. I want to keep playing it. It gets easier every time, of course, but man, if you like a game with a challenge, I can't recommend Lies of P enough. Just, try not to lie too much. It can get you in trouble.
Sonic X Shadow Generations is officially out, and all I can say is, Sonic fans, we are on the good timeline. From stellar, almost perfect reviews leaving the fanbase in literal shock, to getting a shout out from influencers like Critical.
When I'm saying Sonic Cross Shadow Generations is a banger, shit is slapping, because I'm not exactly playing softball when it comes to Sonic.
To selling over 1 million copies before the game had even been fully released for 24 hours. Sonic Team and Sega have really stepped it up, making major moves with this release while altering the public opinion of the Sonic franchise as a whole, which, to be honest, seems to be the main objective. I've completed both the Sonic Generations and Shadow Generations storylines, and even S-ranked pretty much everything on the Shadow side. If you want to see my playthroughs of the game, check out my livestream playlist, and this video to see my extremely emotional reaction to the first segment in Shadow Generations. Now for my review. First off, let's talk about the full package. Sonic X Shadow Generations includes a remastered and slightly revised version of the game, Sonic Generations, alongside Shadow Generations, which is an entirely new full-length game. Although I may not be a huge fan of Sonic Generations itself, pairing the two together not only invokes a nostalgic feel in players familiar with the series, it also provides a welcoming feel to all the newbies just being introduced to Sonic and Shadow's adventures. There's a powerful contrast between the two games, depicted extremely well by the title screen display. I recommend when playing the campaigns, you complete the one you begin with fully before you move on to the other one for the full effect of the immersive journey. The order doesn't matter when it pertains to the story, but personally, I feel like it's best to start with Sonic Generations if you're new to the series. And of course, if you're a seasoned Sonic fan, you'll probably want to start with Shadow Generations, just as I did, since you are at least somewhat familiar with the original Sonic Generations game, and the Shadow story is the center of attention. To elaborate a bit more on my recommendation, the reason I suggest playing Sonic's story first is because of the feel of the game controls. Shadow Generations has a very intuitive control scheme, at least in my opinion, that feels up-to-date, accurately responsive, and when paired with the extraordinarily well-designed levels, feels smooth, almost like butter. While the controls in Sonic Generation feel a bit more stiff, uncomfortable, and outdated. To me, this can be felt the most in the 2D style levels and the level segments where it switches from 3D to 2D. And because I played Shadow Generations first, when I went back and played Sonic Generations, it felt more like I was forcing my way through the levels rather than enjoying them for the nostalgic charm and the design. One standout feature is the character interaction. Sonic Generations is filled with lighthearted conversations and direct dialogue progression, while Shadow's story provides a different dynamic filled with deep emotional expression. As for the story, it's engaging and well-paced, offering plenty of satisfying twists that keep you invested. I think fans will really appreciate the nods to the previous games while also enjoying a fresh storyline that feels relevant and exciting. In terms of challenges, there's a great balance between accessible gameplay for newcomers and tougher challenges for veterans. The inclusion of the collectibles and side missions give players a reason to explore every single bit of the game. Honestly, S-ranking in Sonic Generations is really easy, so you definitely feel more of a satisfaction from your good gameplay in Shadow Generations. Now, moving forward, the focus of this review is going to be on Shadow Generations. Since I spent the majority of my game time there and went into full completionist mode, I feel like it's only appropriate that we spend most of the time talking about this part of the game in particular. Like so many others, I've had a burning excitement to finally play this game ever since they showed the very first teaser, and I can honestly say I was in no way disappointed. They truly pulled out all the stops with this one. The only real issue I had with the game, if you can even call this an issue, is that I wish it was longer. Which again isn't a bad thing at all. This was the Sonic game we've all been waiting for. It really feels like Sonic Team is showing us a glimpse of the full potential of what they can do with the franchise and beloved characters in the series like our star here, Shadow the Hedgehog. As a side note, when I play new games on stream, people tend to come in and ask me if the game's worth purchasing or if they should buy it, and in most cases, I talk about my feelings about the game and whether or not I'd get it, but I mentioned that I can't make that decision for you. And in this case, I've said yes and recommended this to anyone who is a fan of Sonic who has asked me. It's just that good.
Oh, happy and everyone, and Happy New Year, and I hope your 2025 is going absolutely amazing. When Zara asked me to talk about a game that had left a big impression for me in 2024, I had only one game that I could immediately go for, and that was has been Persona 5 Royal. I have been streaming that, and well, it has left a pretty big impression. I haven't quite finished it yet. I thought I almost was when Zara asked me, but I still had like 15 hours left apparently. But overall, the reason why the game has left such a big impression on me is because, well, a lot of the things that initially drew me was to the aesthetics. It looked really great. What I saw from the gameplay, it looked pretty interesting. And overall, yeah, I had a really good feeling for it. I just also a bit scary with a lot of things being like, you have to be doing a lot of time management and all of that, which isn't my strong suit with games. So that often ends up with me eating pointlessly grinding a lot, or just kind of being like losing my way. But overall, while playing it, I found that it is rather not that bad actually. Like the time management is there and you can mess up, and I might have actually doing my first playthrough because I don't think I am at the moment able to get everything I wanted to do, but yeah, I got most of it, so I think that's a good way to go. But yeah, what I like about the game a lot is it's a really good combination of aesthetically pleasing, both in the visuals as well as the audio, because the soundtrack is just amazing in my opinion, as well as a good battle system. Gameplay is really well done. Yeah, there's very little complaints about me from that, and as well as a really well and pretty deep story actually. I don't want to spoil too much, but it really is able to hit on social issues that well, mostly focused in Japan, but since that's where the game takes place and all that, so but there's a lot of things that that the game touches on in a way that, in my opinion, is pretty well done. It isn't slapping you in the face with, hey, if you do this, then you're a bad person or anything. It's just, hey, these things are bad, and yeah, these people might have reasons for it, but they're not always redeemable, or if they are redeemable, it often ends up being like, yeah, like, especially the first story arc really hits hard initially. The ones after that are a bit more, I think it might be because they aren't directly connected to the main cast, and that is why they are not as as hard hitting as the first one. But as you get towards the end and the more personal matters start acting up again, and they can start going back again, where you actually can have a pretty solid discussion with people that are watching playing about certain things and all that. So overall, I had a really good feeling that it's, for me at least, it's a really good. It is a really good game. It has a good mix of everything: good story, good gameplay, good visuals, good audio. Like, the characters are likable in it. The villains in it are absolutely deplorable, which makes them really good as a villain, I guess. Because, well, if you cannot hate a villain, then how good is a villain, right? And overall speaking, yeah, it's my first Persona game, so it's also maybe that the entire Persona series is like that. So I am not sure. People have advised me to just play this one and see what I think about it, and then I can always go back to the others, especially since I think Persona 3 has recently gotten a remake or a re-release, so maybe I will be going to that one eventually. But so far, yeah, overall, pretty good series, pretty good game at the very least, and I've been enjoying it. And if you haven't already, I would say give it all a try. And again, Happy New Year, and I wish you all the best.